Do you want to create, multiply, and manage your wealth like multimillionaires and billionaires? In 2025, you can set up your own family office legacy wealth strategy in 45 days. Producers Wealth has open enrollment for their family office workshop, the Family Polaris. In the 6-week family office workshop, you will set up the 5 family office structure pillars. MC Lobsher and his team at Producers Wealth will walk you through setting up legacy assets like your family statement of purpose and your family constitution, legal tax and insurance structures to contractually multiply the family's wealth with every generation, your own family bank to finance everything your family needs, asset management strategies of billionaires and endowments, and how to establish your very own family mastermind. In 45 days, you will have your own family office structure in place if you join this program. The workshop includes curriculum, which consists out of video lessons, weekly live coaching Zoom calls, and community. You can be part of a community of like-minded families that want to live and leave a legacy for their families. You can apply to join the program at yourownfamilyoffice.ai. That's yourownfamilyoffice.ai. The world is going through changes. Changes happening at a speed that we have never seen before. This is leading to disruption, chaos, panic, fear, hysteria, and a turbulent economy and marketplace. How do you protect your wealth in a turbulent world? How do you invest for cash flow in alternative assets to escape the rat race in times of uncertainty? How do you decentralize yourself, your family, your community, your business, and your investments to become sovereign and escape the matrix? If you are looking for strategies, tactics, and techniques to escape the rat race and matrix, you are in the right place. My name is MC Lobsher, and this is Cashflow Ninja. This is Cashflow Ninja. I'm MC Lobsher. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode and spending your most valuable resource, your time, once again with me on the show. Everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. That's cashflowninja.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the #1 newsletter in the alternative wealth strategy and alternative asset investing space, the Wealth Dojo. You can subscribe to the Wealth Dojo by going to cashflowninja.com/subscribe. I've got a fantastic show for you today. I'm joined by Steve Gordon from the $1 Million Author. Last year, I published a book, Get Wealthy for Sure, the #1 financial strategy for business owners that want to multiply wealth predictably. And that book has reached many, many, many people. It's been one of those things that completely blew my mind of how many people we would be able to reach and how many people we would be able to help. And I worked with Steve Gordon and his team at $1 Million Author to help me, #1, with the book, getting the book done, and #2, distributing the book. And I will say it's been an incredible experience working with Steve and his team at $1 Million Author. I've learned so much about business, about marketing, and just in general, the book business. So I wanted to have Steve Gordon on the show to share his knowledge, his wisdom with all of my listeners and my viewers. I think you're going to find this conversation extremely valuable. He has unique insights around copywriting, marketing, business strategy, and especially AI. Now, towards the end of this conversation, Steve shared something that he's doing with his company right now in AI that's going to blow your mind. So you want to listen to the end because you don't want to miss that. That is a complete game changer of what he's doing with AI for his own business. Steve, great to see you.
Hey, MC, good to see you.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to our conversation and having you on the show. For my listeners and viewers, Steve I work with Steve's company to get my book out, to get Wealthy for Sure strategy. Yep, the number one financial strategy for business owners to multiply wealth predictably. So had a fantastic experience, and Steve is a wealth of knowledge around marketing, the trends that are out there, the mediums of it, AI, and much, much more. But before we dive into that, Steve, could you please share a little bit about your background and journey just with my audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I've built two businesses. Started kind of my professional life in excuse me, in engineering technical field, and was really fortunate. First business that I went to work for had a great mentor. It was a small company, and I got asked to take over as CEO after I'd been there just 4 years. So 28 years old. Now I'm running this company, and it was baptism by fire. I truly probably wasn't qualified for it at that point, but you take the opportunities when they come, and you grow into them. And so grew that firm and was there for about 12 years, and then left and started our current company, which has morphed over the years. And so I started this company because I grew up in professional services. My dad's an accountant, so I grew up kind of crawling around his office. And then I went into a professional service, engineering consulting firm, and then over time realized, man, you got to learn how to market and sell, no matter what business you're in. And I wasn't prepared for that. I discovered most other professionals aren't either, and so that's why I started our current company. And we've done a few different things over the years. We've helped folks with lots of different marketing strategies, but early on, about 2014, I wrote my first book, and it just totally changed the business overnight. And during the launch, and I can talk about how we launched it, but during the launch, 5,000 people got a copy of my book. Our email list at the time, our whole database of prospects was only like 1,000 people. And
Wow.
so, and that's the power of the book, and that's how I kind of discovered it. And some clients asked us to write a book for them, and we did. And they had really good results. And what we found over the years is that every time we'd help a client write a book about what they did, their business took off. They got exponentially better results than any other marketing strategy that we employed for them. And so we just eventually just dropped all of the other strategies, and now all we do is help people write books. So
I'm looking forward to diving more into that the book strategy, because I've already seen it just in my own life, just the effect that it has, and it's quite astonishing. Having been in the podcast game since 2016, which that was a significant, it changed the trajectory of all my businesses. I've been blown away, but about this book strategy, and that's why I'm excited to have you on to share this with my listeners and my viewers. But before we do that, the world of marketing is fluid, to say the very least. It changes constantly. There's things happening around the clock. Doesn't matter which hours of the day. What are you seeing as far as some of the trends in the marketing space? Copywriting, podcasting, books, online marketing, social media, AI. What are some of the things that you're seeing out there?
Well, they say marketers ruin everything, and they've even ruined marketing. When I first got into marketing, I really came from a direct response copywriting background, and it was in the early days. It was great because there weren't that many people that were using those techniques. Well, the internet happened, and those techniques became sort of the table stakes for things. And there are a lot of people who have used them pretty poorly, and that has created some challenges in the marketplace for everyone. And what's happened is across the board, you're seeing consumers, whether it's B2B or B2C, they have gained a level of sophistication. So when they're on Instagram or YouTube or whatever channel you're trying to market to them on, they've seen so many pitch messages that they are just incredibly good at filtering those out. And so what we used to be able to do, which is just put a presentation, put an offer in front of someone and get a response, is working less and less effectively. And at the same time that all of that's happening, we have this explosion of media, and you've got an erosion of trust. And so there's more information than ever, but we trust it less than we ever have before. So all of these things are kind of conspiring to lead in the direction of, if you're going to do marketing, it really needs to be marketing that's trust based, that is designed to create authority for yourself and is designed to be your authentic voice. And I almost hate to use the word authentic. Like, I think that's overused, right? Like, yes, you want to be authentic, but really it just means showing up, be you. And people are going to buy you because of who you are and what you stand for and the way that you present things. And so, to me, those are the big trends. Like, AI is coming in, and it's going to have, it is already having, if you haven't experienced yet, it's already having a huge impact on marketing. There are already many marketing, feeds on all the social media channels that are fully AI created. Somebody's sitting there and having AI write it and then voice it and then do a video for it. And so people are starting to look at that and go, that's junk content. And there's going to be a real premium, I think, going forward on content that is human created and that is helping people understand how to apply a particular thought, a concept, an idea in their own lives and into their own application.
My new book, Get Wealthy for Sure, the #1 financial strategy for business owners to multiply wealth predictably, just hit #1 on Amazon. So Get Wealthy for Sure is an Amazon #1 bestseller. In this book, you'll learn the wealth building secrets that the ultra rich have used for over 170 years. You'll learn how to create your own banking system using a dividend paying whole life insurance policy, allowing you to finance your business growth, invest in lucrative opportunities, and build generational wealth, all tax free and protected from market volatility. You'll also learn the proven strategies used by icons like Walt Disney, the Rockefellers, and top CEOs to grow their empires and get wealthy for sure. You'll learn how to build a team of expert financial professionals, implement tax-efficient strategies, and protect your assets from creditors. You'll also learn the power of thinking like the wealthy and aligning your capital for maximum impact so you can take control of your financial destiny. I also share a step-by-step aligned capital strategy that will guide you to a life of certainty, clarity, and predictability without falling victim to misinformation or settling for the status quo. If you want to get a free copy of my book, Get Wealthy for Sure, and only pay the shipping and handling, you could go to getwealthyforsure.com. That's getwealthyforsure.com. It's very interesting what you just said about the trust factor, that we have access to so much information. And maybe that's why there's a lack of trust. But it definitely seems that, you look at every study that's out there, that the trust that people have in institutions and this infrastructure of which we've all lived in and existed in together, it's quite astonishing how low it's actually dropped. And then, of course, you've got a ton of different changes constantly happening all over the world. The platforms that people use to communicate is changing. Twitter turned into X, which completely changed the game. And, now recently I've seen that even Meta with Mark Zuckerberg is announcing some massive changes to just their guidelines, how they approach, how they actually monitor content online. So it's interesting to see what's happening, and to stand out in this world is going to be more and more challenging, right?
Well, I think it's going to be more and more challenging, but at the same time, there is infinitely more opportunity than, say, 30, 40 years ago before the internet. And so, what we've seen happen is this kind of turning of the entire world in terms of how we view authority upside down, right? Right now, like you mentioned, the institutions are at kind of this all-time low in terms of trust and their perception in the world. And if we apply that just to how we would get information in the past, we used to get information from things like newspapers and network TV and magazines, and these things gained authority because it was very difficult to create a newspaper and have it sustained, right? There was an infrastructure that needed to be there, and so that alone gave it some gravitas. Rightly or wrongly, it gave it some gravitas, right?
Yep.
Well, with every version of media, we have stripped away the barriers to entry. So now Twitter is the newspaper, YouTube is the TV network, and it's available to everyone. And so, we're in this weird kind of phase where we're not trusting the institutions, but we have this opportunity to get to know and build relationship with individuals, obviously in a one-to-many sense. Like Joe Rogan's a great example of this. Like Joe Rogan has created tremendous trust in society at large with a segment of people that follow him. And he's done that by just showing up and being himself and having these long conversations for 3+ hours with people, right? And whether you agree with Joe or disagree, he can be a polarizing figure right now. That's not the point. Watch what he's doing, because if you're thinking about how do I market my business going forward, well, there's a version of that in your niche, in your market, that will work. You're doing it with your podcast. I did it for years with my podcast. And so I think that's the great opportunity, is that we have the ability now to use media to build relationship at scale. And I'll tell you a couple of great stories around that. I ran a podcast for 7 years called the Authority Builder Podcast. And I would interview people, entrepreneurs from all over the world. And I don't know, I was maybe a year and a half into the podcast, and I go to this big marketing conference called Traffic and Conversion out in San Diego. Thousands of people at it. And I'm minding my own business. I'm kind of still a nobody. And I'm walking down the hall in the big San Diego Convention Center, and two guys stop me. Like, hey, aren't you Steve Gordon of that podcast? And they started recounting back to me stories I'd shared on the podcast. It was like they knew me, like we were best friends, and they were total strangers to me.
Yep.
But the podcast created that kind of relationship in their minds that they had because they heard my voice. The other story is with my book. So I was invited to speak at the HubSpot Inbound Conference in 2017. And I went and spoke about the topic of my first book, Unstoppable Referrals, and was speaking to a whole room full of a few hundred marketing agency owners. And somebody came up to me as they were miking me up before the talk, and had a copy of my book, and he said, "I just want to tell you, like, this book has changed my business. Would you sign my copy?" And I'm just a regular guy. Like, I don't think of myself in those terms, but here, this guy, because he had that authority piece, and he had spent hours with me, through reading the book, he felt like he knew me a little bit, and he kind of gave me that sort of authority status. And so those are the sorts of things that going forward are going to work well. And so those are the things you want to be thinking about in terms of marketing.
I also think that the approach that you can take, and especially with a book and a podcast, different mediums, but you could take a very trying to figure out a good way to say this, like a sniper. It's almost like a sniper approach rather than just an infantry running with a rifle and throwing bullets, mostly hitting trees, where the sniper is very calculated, know exactly the distance, the direction of the wind speed, and the exact target that they want to hit. And for most of the time they do. Taking that approach in marketing, you could do that too. And I almost feel like that's exactly how I felt about your marketing. I mean, I was introduced through Dave Steck, which my audience knows. Dave has been a great friend in the Steck family for years now. And he came across your book and he said, MC, you've got to read this book that Steve wrote. And he's like, I feel like you're going to get a lot of value from this. And then when I read it, I'm like, I've almost felt like you spoke exactly to me. So it's a very powerful medium too. And it's also, you can be very precise and very targeted, right?
Absolutely. And the thing that like both podcasts and books have in common, and there are other mediums, you can do something similar with a YouTube channel, for example.
Yep.
But the thing that they have in common is time. They require a potential client to invest time to consume that content. And, and when they're doing that, they're committing something very valuable to you. And if they're getting value back out of it, you're going to build relationship with them. They're going to begin to trust you. So we talked about trust being eroded. One of the ways that we build trust is just through time spent and familiarity in the real world with human beings, right? Well, it's also the way we tend to build trust with people we don't know. If we spend time with their ideas, with their thinking, you read a book that's written in someone's voice, you're hearing that they're thinking, usually out loud in your head. And so it's as if they're there with you. And it's a really profound way to build relationship that I think a lot of people overlook. They look at these things as trinkets, but one of the things we're really putting a lot of emphasis on in 2025, both in our own company and with all of our clients, is the idea of time on brand. And it came from my partner. He's involved in another company as well, and he in that company they started tracking this notion of time on brand. And the way they sort of described it is, how much time is someone interacting with the content that we produce and the information that we're putting out. And they began tracking it, and they figured out that they needed an average of about 47 minutes of time on brand before someone would sign up to have a sales conversation. And it didn't matter if that 47 minutes was all in a day or all in a month. And so if you think about that concept for a second, if I can just get someone to interact with enough of my content in a short, and like I can get them to binge it, read my book, watch some YouTube videos, listen to a podcast, then you have this really great way of taking a long sales cycle and crunching it down and shortening it. And the result of all of that is a much better qualified, easier to sell prospect, because they've already bought into all of your ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's an incredible way to connect with people out there. And that's why I wanted to talk about the $1 million book strategy too, because it's a very, fantastic process, great experience. Can you just give an overview of the entire process for folks of exactly how you work with people that are thinking about a book? They have a book in them, they have a business, and they're trying to use that medium and might be looking at, is this something that I should explore?
Absolutely. So first, I think it's important to talk about who is this for, right? And so there are a lot of people that have thought about, writing the next great American novel, or, some book about their life or whatever. And we're not really built for that. We're specifically built to help entrepreneurs, business owners write a book about what it is that you do, how you help people, so that you can communicate to those people how you can help them and you can help more of them. And the way that we do that is we walk you through a very structured process to take you from zero to having your book published in about 90 days. And you've been through it, and you know that we start by doing some interviews. We have book strategists, and these are all people that are former entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs, and they're doing this, as a kind of a fun project on the side, where they'll come and interview you. And you went through that with Devin on our team, who's awesome.
Yep.
And it's important that, like, a lot of people will think, oh, I'll just work with a ghostwriter. The problem with ghostwriters is that ghostwriters are writers, and writers are awesome. You need a writer. We have ghostwriters that work in the next phase of the project. But at that early phase of figuring out what the book should say to create this business result, to attract the right kind of clients, you need somebody that understands business strategy. And so that's why we approach it that way. And then the next step is we write the book, and usually the first draft comes back within about 3 to 4 weeks. We go through an iterative process with each author to polish it up and edit it. We design the cover, do everything that's needed, get it published, and then launch it to Amazon to usually to bestseller status, and then help with how to market it after that. And so the whole goal is not necessarily for us to create a big project out of writing the book. It's to compress the time it takes to write the book and to make it easy for you to write the book so that you can actually have the book, because all of the profit comes in having the book, not in writing the book.
Yeah, especially then the marketing process starts, right? And launch of the book. Now you had shared earlier in our conversation, one of your big successes of your own book was the launch. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and then how you actually launch and get a book out there.
Yeah. So when I wrote my first book, I didn't know how to launch a book. I didn't know how to write a book. I'd failed writing my first book twice. I threw two earlier versions in the garbage because they just weren't good. And I kept getting, lost in my thoughts, and I wasn't organized well enough. And so by the time I got to the third, I said, look, I need a system for this. And so I found some resources, folks who had done it successfully, used that plus some of my own experience writing, and developed a system. And I was able to write that book in an hour a day in 35 days. And then fast forward, we get it ready to publish, which took us, at that time, it took 7 months to get to that point, because we didn't know how to do any of it. And so we were trying to figure it out at the time. And so we go to the launch, and I don't know how to launch a book, but I'd been doing a podcast for about a year, and I'd interviewed 52 entrepreneurs all over the world. So I went back out to that network and said, hey, I've got a book, might be useful for your audience. I'm launching it this week. If you can, help me promote it that week, that'd be great. So out of those 52, 15 enthusiastically said, yes, I'll help you. And so those 15 people sent emails out to their networks, and some of them had big networks, some of them had tiny networks, but those 15 people helped me promote that book. And as a result, 5,268 people got a copy of the book that first week.
Wow.
And I have to tell you, when I think back about that, it's mind blowing that was even possible. But really, if you think about what writing a book is doing, you're sort of flipping the way most businesses market on its head. Most business owners will market their business by going out and trying to get in front of a person and then sell that person on how great their ideas are. What a book does is exactly the opposite of that. You take your best ideas, you put them in a book, and then you can send the book out. You can send lots of them out. And those ideas sell those prospects on you and your company. And so that happened in that first week. 5,000 plus people got a copy of the book. And at the time, I say it was me and a part-time assistant, right? We were like a 1.5 person firm, not even a 2-person firm. And all of our clients were local. I live in Tallahassee, Florida. If you don't know where that is, there's a reason. It's a small town. We're like the 11th largest market in Florida, capital city, but it's not a big place. And all the clients were local. And literally overnight, because of that book, I start getting inquiries from all over the US, UK, Canada, Australia, basically the English-speaking world. Overnight. How else could you do that, right? And is that going to happen for everybody who, writes a book? No, but you can go from being the best kept secret to being very well known in your market very quickly. And that's the power of a book.
If you've been watching the news headlines, you know that the world's top CEOs, biggest investors, family offices, ultra affluent, and political elite are all moving to cash. Why? They're building up their war chest to go buy assets at a significant discount in the coming months. They are warehousing their capital in vehicles that have stood the test of time for 170 years with institutions that have made good on their promises for 170 years. If you're interested to learn how to build your own banking system using the infinite banking concept, just like all of these parties. You can watch a presentation at yourownbankingsystem.com. That's yourownbankingsystem.com. And one of the things that stand out is just the power of the network, right? That you've created
Yeah.
through your podcast, which, it's been one of the greatest things that I've done over the past. It's almost, it's 9 years this year, so
Wow.
almost 10 years, so almost a decade of podcasting, and I'll never stop doing it because I just get to meet incredibly talented, just brilliant people, and have developed lifelong friendships through it, right? So that's a very powerful part of that network. So the fundamentals still stay the fundamentals in the end, where networks has always been the most powerful thing to have, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And what I like about taking information and packaging it in something like a book, and there are other ways to package information. You can package it in a webinar or a presentation or a video. I like a book because it carries some authority and weight to it, and they're physical as well, which is kind of nice. But it's a great way for people in your network to share you. It's really hard for them to just go around and make introductions all the time for you. But if they go, hey, I know this guy MC, and he's got this really great book called Get Wealthy for Sure. Don't you want that? Like, everybody wants to get wealthy for sure.
Right.
And so it's really easy for me to share a book like this with everybody that I know, because I don't know anybody who wouldn't want this. Well, now you're in the hands of, my entire network potentially. And even on a small scale, it's very easy to get your clients if you want to, if they're reluctant to refer. So I was on with one of our clients yesterday, and they have they're probably top 1% in the world on executing a referral process. And I mean, they ask consistently and all that, but they have a group of clients who've never referred them. Everybody has them. Those people they just get scared by the idea of, taking someone that they know and care about and sending them into a sales meeting. Well, guess what? You can give them a copy of the book, because there's zero risk to anybody in getting a copy of the book. All right. I've never been offended when somebody's given me a book in the past. I've had people give me books. I get them as gifts all the time. I love it. I might not be super interested in the topic, but I'm not going to be offended by it. So It's just an easy way to, sort of give the gift of you, as we like to say.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the referral system in any business could be, that could be a make or break for a lot of businesses. Yeah. Because it's an interesting, in some of my businesses too, was one of the areas identified as, that's not our strongest point at all. We need to do something about it.
Yeah. It's funny. My first book was on the topic of referrals, and I did some research going into that book, and this is 2014, so the numbers are a little old, but I doubt they've changed. Something like 80% of business owners will say that they get the vast majority of their business from referral, and something like 20% or less, when asked, do you have a system or a process to make referrals happen? They go, nope, nothing. We're just sitting back and hoping the phone rings.
Yep. So the one thing that I definitely want to drive home here, Steve, is there's a system around this, an entire strategy. So I want to make sure that that really lands with folks, that it's not, you're just not, just putting a book out there and see what happens. It's very intentional. And as I mentioned earlier, very targeted. It's the sniper approach versus the infantry, just throwing bullets everywhere and hitting trees. So there's a lot of intentionality about this. So that is the secret to this success, is the intentionality, and being very, very intentional with a strategy and with building out this system around it. Because I'm just thinking top of mind of, like, usually when we have discussions, I'm like, how does this go wrong? Right. That's one of the top things. And that's why I hit on this. Other things that you can mention why some of these things wouldn't work?
The biggest reason why any marketing doesn't work is mindset of the business owner. The challenge, I think, with marketing is that, particularly when you're implementing a new strategy, you don't know what's going to happen on the other side of that implementation. And you've got to have the discipline to say, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know if I take these actions that the likelihood of something good happening is going to be better than the likelihood of something bad happening. And so then you've got to have the discipline to block the time to do it, or hire the team to do it, or do whatever you need to do to make it actually happen. To me, that's the biggest risk, is just not following through on the stuff. And that's not, just for people who write books, but I mean, we've produced podcasts before, and I've seen that strategy not work when the client says, oh, I got to cancel the podcast, interviews for this week because there's, an operational emergency or something in the business, right? Like, I know those things come up, but you've got to have the discipline to continue to execute, because when it comes down to it, marketing is the most important function in the business. It's the thing that gets people to find out about you and to know you exist. And if nobody knows you exist, you don't have a business. So I think that's sort of primary. And I think the other thing is worrying about the wrong metrics. We see this all the time with folks that we work with. They get so focused on how many sales am I going to get with my book on Amazon. Have you gotten your first royalty check from Jeff Bezos?
No.
It's probably coming soon, because your book's been out about that long. There's usually a day lag. If you can buy lunch, great. If you can take your wife to dinner, you are doing amazing, right? And that's kind of the way book royalties work. That's not how you're going to make money from the book. But people get so focused on how many have I sold on Amazon. Not even how much money have they made, but how many have they sold. They think that is the recipe for success. But the recipe for success is just getting the book into the hands of the people that it can impact and that you can help. And I've always found the best way to do that is just send them a copy. For anybody that's selling anything that is expensive, this is cheap, and it will do a really good job of getting somebody to write you a big check. So, so those are some of the things that people get tripped up on, the little things, when they really need to focus on what's most important.
You're also a very strategic thinker for business. What are you seeing also for business as a whole this year? What are some of the opportunities that exist out there for small businesses?
Yeah. So for us, I'll tell you this is the year of AI, and you have to be careful with it, because you can overdo AI. And the way that I'm really thinking about it is, I want AI I want it to be this amazing teammate who does all of the mundane back end stuff that enables me and my team to show up in a much more human way with more people. And so it's sort of an enabler rather than a substitute. And I see a lot of people trying to use it the other way around. Like, we talked about AI content on social media. That might not be the way that I would use it. I mean, there are ways you can do things like clone your voice. And I think that can be pretty powerful for a business owner, because you can multiply the message. We've just done something. We're going to be rolling it out to clients probably in another month or so. So you'll get to see this, but we've actually created a clone of me, and it's got my voice. You can ask it questions. You can call it on the phone. It has everything that I've ever written about marketing over the last 10 or 15 years. It's got all of my books in it. And so it'll be great for our clients and also great for our team, because they can ask it any question and they're going to get an answer that not only sounds like me, but is on point with the way that I would teach. And so it'd be available 24/7. So that's a way to use AI to give somebody, kind of all the time access to me. But I also want to have a lot more opportunities to be human with the people that we're trying to do business with. And so to me, that's what small business owners should be thinking right now, is where can I employ AI that allows me to get some leverage and increase the human interaction, because I've freed up time from other stuff.
Fantastic. Steve, I usually ask my first-time guests, the show, we talk a lot about business, we talk about building wealth, cash flow, and so forth, but it's also about leaving a legacy. So if you cannot leave any money for future generations, and you're only allowed to leave them 3 principles or values to build wealth and achieve happiness and success, what would they be?
Wow. So I think first would be that above all else, apply the golden rule, which is our number one key value in the company. The second, which is our number 2 value in the company, is to take the approach that all progress starts by telling the truth. And that's from Dan Sullivan, one of my mentors. And the idea is you can't get from where you are to where you want to go until you're honest about where you are. And so no judgment, no punishment, but be honest about where you are, so that you can make progress. To me, I think the third is to bank on compounding in everything. Compounding is amazing. When I look back at what I've been able to accomplish, and in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty small, but I've compounded in this business every year. I compounded my experience in the first business to create this business. So you can compound time, you can compound learning, you can compound money. All of that to me leads to wealth.
Fantastic. Steve, where can my listeners and viewers reach out and connect and follow and learn more about what you guys are up to at $1 Million Book?
Yeah, so if you go to milliondollarauthor.io, that's our website. And if you go to YouTube, you can find more content that we've put out at $1 Million Author on YouTube. And you can connect with me, Steve Gordon, on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey and all of your knowledge and just providing so much value to all of my listeners and my viewers.
Yeah, thanks, MC. This has been a blast. I appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you. Thank you to all of my listeners and my viewers for, again, spending your most valuable resource, your time with me on the show today. Everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the best newsletter in the alternative wealth strategy and alternative asset investing space, the Wealth Dojo. You can subscribe to the Wealth Dojo by going to cashflowninja.com/subscribe. Until next time, live infinitely. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. The information being presented and considered does not consider your particular financial objectives or situation, and it does not make personalized recommendations. This material is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified tax and legal advisor or other qualified professionals, and you should not use the information in place of a customized consultation with a licensed professional regarding your specific personal financial objectives, situation, and needs. We believe the information provided is reliable, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, timeliness, or completeness.